Tennessee has had some awfully good playmakers over the last few years, whether it was Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, Hendon Hooker, or most recently Jalen Wright. The Volunteers have been electric these last couple of weeks, and while everyone is talking about their quarterback Nico, what's getting forgotten is their running back. Right now, Dylan Sampson is arguably the best running back in college football. Through 3 games, he's carried the ball 45 times for 357 yards and 9 touchdowns, and hasn't even gotten a chance to play that much. Because they've been in blowouts, they've been deciding to rest him, and right now Dylan Sampson could make a case for being the best running back in all of college football. But who the heck is this guy? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about the insane rise of Dylan Sampson. We're going to go through his high school career, his recruitment, his time at Tennessee, and why and how he's gotten so good for them. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Dylan Sampson. So in order to understand who he is, we first need to go back in time. Growing up in Dutchtown, Louisiana, there was one player who everyone looked up to on the football field. That was Eddie Lacy. Sampson said, quote, "I always looked up to him. He came from Dutchtown and everybody here knew him, and he was a terror on the football field." Well, Sampson was a pretty good athlete himself and eventually became a hotshot high schooler with hopes of one day being a star. But few thought it would actually happen, probably including himself. But ever since he took over as the starting running back in 2019, he has been putting up huge numbers. Despite playing just 8 games in 2020, Sampson rushed for 1,300 yards with 15 touchdowns, and then built upon that in 2021 with 1,800 yards and 24 touchdowns. He'd be a part of the class of 2022, and at the time, he was a 3-star running back. He had insane speed, as he ran a 4.32 40-yard dash, had a 4.4 GPA, and would have been an all-state track runner as well, but he got hurt, and that would end up hurting him. Thankfully, he'd be back to his full health as a senior though, and he put up those 1,800 yards. His offensive coordinator said, quote, "On the field, he's obviously electric. He can score anytime he touches the ball. He makes people around him play harder because they know at any point he can score." But Dylan Sampson was no longer just a great player for Dutchtown. He eventually became a Griffin legend, as he was now mentioned in the same breath as guys like Landon Collins and Eddie Lacy. What's funny is Lacy never rushed for as many yards as Sampson did. In a Friday night game against Ouachita Parish, Sampson broke 2 school rushing records. He set the new school record for rushing yards in a game with 287, and also ran for over 4,300 career yards, which broke the previous mark set by Lacy. When Lacy found out that Sampson broke his old record, he made sure to send a tweet to Sampson's way, reading, quote, "Nice work, young king. Records are meant to be broken." At the time, his head coach said, quote, "Everybody's been trying to key on him, but the teams can't stop him." In terms of his recruitment, he received offers from schools such as Michigan State, Penn State, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Tennessee, but he ended up going with the Volunteers. Sampson's signing kind of went under the radar, as Tennessee fans were more impressed with their addition of 4-star running back Justin Williams instead of him. According to 24/7 Sports though, Sampson was still a big deal, as he was a 4-star recruit and the number 24 running back in the class of 2022. So how has he done for the Vols so far? Let's take a look. Yeah, Sampson may not have been the most talked about, but he ended up having a pretty good freshman year in 2022. As the Vols had a breakout superstar season, Sampson came off the bench a couple of times. He scored a touchdown against Ball State, had one against UT Martin, one against Mizzou, and then also in his first serious duty against Vanderbilt, he had 131 yards and a touchdown. In total, he finished with 397 yards and 6 total scores. Going into 2023, he began a 3-headed monster group with Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. He ended up exploding in his first game, and helped the Vols have the number 2 rushing offense in the SEC and one of the tops in the country. In his first game against Virginia, he did something no other Tennessee Volunteer had done in quite some time. He scored 4 total touchdowns in a win over Virginia, 3 of which were rushing and 1 was receiving. He had 61 yards from scrimmage, and his 4-touchdown day was not only a career high for the 18-year-old, but it was the most from any Volunteer running back in the last 6 years. The last time a back had done that was when John Kelly did that in 2017 against Georgia Tech, and that was a crazy overtime game if I remember right. His one time where he got to be a primary back this year was in a 33-27 win over Kentucky, as after Jalen Wright left the game with an injury, Sampson ran the ball for 91 yards in the fourth quarter, including 13 carries and 2 huge catches, and then eventually scored the go-ahead touchdown. Sampson had a couple of other decent games, as he had a touchdown against South Carolina, 139 yards and 2 touchdowns against UTSA, and then obviously 37 yards against Vanderbilt. He'd get his first opportunity to be the main back in their bowl game, as both him and Nico Iamaleava got their opportunities to be number 1 in the depth chart, and show what next year could look like. Nico ran for 4 scores on the ground, and Sampson ran for 133 yards and a 35-0 win over the Hawkeyes. This was huge. Sampson finished the season with 604 yards and 8 total touchdowns, and it looks like he's going to be the next big thing for him. He was more of a change of pace runner in the backfield this past season, but now he's running back 1, and he's waited eagerly to take on that role. He said, quote, "I'm ready for this, and this is what I want. This is what I've been working for, and to have the opportunity to showcase and help my teammates, it's going to be a good and a new mental space to adjust to, but I'll get back into the role, and it's going to be fun." The Vols can use Sampson as a back in short yardage, at the goal line, or catching the ball in the backfield, and he can pretty much do everything. So far, the word out of spring camp is that Sampson's become a superstar, and many believe that he could be one of the top running backs in the SEC. He's primed for a breakout third season, and it would not surprise me if he goes for over 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns, and ends up being a day 2 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. So those last words that you just heard were my take on Dylan Sampson going into this year. How has he ended up doing? Well, you could say maybe I was wrong in the sense that he could be even better than 1,000 yards. So far, through 3 games, Sampson has 357 yards, 9 touchdowns, 45 carries, and 7.9 yards per carry. In their first game against Chattanooga, Sampson went absolutely crazy. He carried the ball 12 times for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns, while averaging over 10 yards per carry. He also caught 3 passes for 29 yards out of the backfield, and so far so good. But that was against crappy competition. In week 2, they'd play number 24 NC State in the Duke's Mayo Classic, and Sampson picked up right where he left off. This time he ran the ball 20 times for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. He once again caught 3 passes out of the backfield for 37 yards and averaged nearly 7 yards per carry. So far so good. Through 2 games, he was crazy. But he saved his best for last so far, as against Kent State, the Vols won 71-0. In that game, Sampson ran the ball 13 times for 101 yards and 4 total touchdowns. They cannot keep this guy out of the end zone, and so far he has just gone crazy. In terms of his ranking in college football, he's currently the 12th best running back in terms of yards, but where he really makes his money is with touchdowns. Currently, he is tied for first with Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, as they both have 9 touchdowns. Jeanty has been considered the best back in college football this year, but Sampson's not nearly getting the same amount of attention he is. Sampson's played less snaps, has carried the ball less times, and is somehow getting so much less publicity. I guess it's because he has 100 less yards, and many people are assuming that Tennessee's playing bad competition. But Sampson right now is an early contender to be the best running back in the SEC and potentially be a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick. The reason I'd say he isn't going to go in the 1st round is because he is a little bit undersized, but he could end up proving us all wrong. Sampson could be the top back in this year's class, and for now, he has been crazy. I remember last year seeing him play and thinking that he was the next big thing, and it's crazy that they might have a player better than Jalen Wright. Tennessee's been producing some good running backs over the last few years, and Sampson has a chance to be the best. But what do you guys think? If you're a Tennessee fan, what do you think of Dylan Sampson? What other player should I do a feature on next? And who, in your opinion, is the best running back in college football? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.